This is a great pleasure for me to now introduce our keynote speaker. Mr. Joel Makower, for more than 20 years, has been a well-respected voice on business, sustainability, and the bottom line. As an award-winning writer, speaker, and strategist on corporate sustainability practices, clean tech, and green marketing, he has helped a wide range of companies align environmental responsibility with business success. The Associated Press has called him the guru of green business practices. Guru. It would be pretty good to be a guru. Isn't guru like the in Sanskrit term for master? You're a master. I want to be a guru one day. I'm telling you. I'm working on it though. Joel is chairman and executive editor of GreenBiz Group Inc., creator of greenbiz.com, as well as research reports and events on the corporate sustainability strategy and trends. He hosts the annual GreenBiz forums and Verge conferences around the world and is author of the annual State of Green Business report. A former nationally syndicated columnist, Joel is author or co-author of more than a dozen books, including his latest, I think I've got a copy here, Strategies for the Green Economy. I'll tell you where to send a check after. It is also available online in ebook form, so I did see that. Please join me in welcoming Joel Makower.
Thank you, Trevor. Good evening, everyone. Wow. I am really impressed by what I've seen in the last 25 minutes. It's really extraordinary to see what's going on here in this room, in this region. It's a very impressive story, and I spent a lot of time traveling around North America, around the world, looking at how business is coming together, and what you are doing here is extraordinary. It is different. It is unique. It's a very powerful thing, bringing companies together, working collaboratively. And so thank you for all that you're doing, all the peer-to-peer learning, all the sharing, all the collaboration, the innovation, and of course, the networking. And I always like to point out that my favorite thing about networking is that it's just one letter off from not working. So, so what I wanted to do tonight is to help sort of tell you what I see going on out there and maybe put into context what's going on here in Ontario, in this great region, in the Eco-Zone, and how that's part of a bigger story and where that's going and how that conversation is changing in some very fundamental ways. But first, I think it's really important sort of to level set. I think most people don't really understand all that's going on out there, just on a day-to-day basis in terms of what companies are doing and how they're changing. So just as an exercise, I want you to think about where you get your source of business news, online, offline, wherever that is, and what if you were to see some of the following headlines. That one of the largest telecom companies in North America had just announced they were going to spend $100 million investing in renewable energy, solar and fuel cells and the like. That one of the largest footwear and apparel companies in the world had just partnered with NASA, the space agency, to develop sustainable fabrics. Or that one of the largest, in fact, the largest healthcare organization in the United States had just committed to LEED gold buildings, the gold level of the LEED green building standard for all of their buildings. Or that another telecom company had just partnered with an NGO to develop water standards, telecoms and water standards, what's going on there. Or one of the largest supermarket chains in the US just announced that they're going to power one of their distribution centers with wasted food. Or that one of the largest software companies in the world said that they saved $5 million just in the past year from car sharing among their employees. So if you just see those kinds of headlines, you'd say, okay, maybe this isn't a nice to do, maybe this is not a marketing or image kind of thing, maybe something fundamental is going on in business. So all of those things happened last month. And all of those things happen every month. I have a slide like this that goes back for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, back to the depth of the recession, to the time when we didn't know where the economy was, where the auto companies were failing, the banks were possibly on the edge, and we still could, I could still show you a dozen examples a month of significant environmental initiatives, achievements, commitments that are being made by companies. So this is part of the fabric. What you are doing is part of a much bigger story of what's going on out there. I've watched this for almost a quarter of a century now, almost 25 years, and sort of seen it go through 3 eras. First, stopping the bad stuff. Even if it was legal, some of the most egregious, spewing of smokestacks and drain pipes and dumpsters, and then, this idea of how do we, align responsibility with business success? How do we create some kinds of things that give us some reputational value and improve the bottom line? But more recently, the conversation has been going not just on how do you improve the bottom line, but how do you grow the top line? How does sustainability become a platform for innovation, new products, new services, whole new business models in some cases? And so I've watched companies of most sizes, certainly the big companies and many mid-sized companies, ask some version of the question, what's our sustainability strategy? They don't even always know what that means. They kind of know they need one. And I group them as in a standard sort of bell curve. At one end, relatively small number of companies that are just doing this for marketing purposes. Really very few that are just sort of doing a few little window dressing and talking about it. It's really not that much part of the scene. In the big fat middle, probably all of you are committing what I call random acts of greenness. Right? You're doing some product things and sort of service or some facility things, some employee things, maybe some community and philanthropy things. It may be a lot of things, and they may be even bold, audacious things, but they tend to be kind of a series of disconnected dots. But at the leading edge are a small group of companies that are starting to ask the question, how do we operate in a world where energy, water, materials, carbon, and toxicity become constraints? And what are the opportunities that fall out of that? And those are really interesting conversations. That's where I get excited about what's going on out there. It's not just about doing less bad. It's not just about incremental eco-efficiency improvements, as important as those are, but it's about some fundamental changes going on. So I'm going to talk about a little bit what's going on and what's behind this and the bigger opportunity that's starting to emerge. What's going on is, I don't really need to go into because it's what you guys are doing. What we saw up there in John's summary of what you all have done in buildings and facilities and products and packaging and all the different processes and how you're working with suppliers and thinking about how goods and materials get from one place to another, the things you buy as companies, looking at it through the lens of impacts like waste or resources and impacts, waste, water, energy, and toxics. Looking at it through the lens of activities, the food that you buy for your company, the meetings, the IT, the data centers, which for many companies are far and away their biggest impact, business travel, which for many people, including myself, is the huge part of the environmental impact, bigger than everything else significantly. And then looking at this through the lens of relationships and communications, both upstream to suppliers and internally to employees, and then downstream to customers and the larger community. And what's interesting about that is when you sort of look at all these things, first of all, it's a lot of things, and that's a significant development in terms of how much this has become dispersed inside companies, that it's no longer just the job of an environmental or sustainability person, that this has become part of everyone's job. It's really interesting to see how the role of the sustainability person inside companies has changed from somebody who made things happen to someone who's now sort of the ringleader for making all these things happen among everybody else. And so this has really become part of the fabric in a lot of companies. And of course, not all companies are doing all these things. In fact, most companies are doing some subset of these things, hopefully the things that map to where their biggest impacts are. But what's behind this? Why is this going on? So there's an old answer, the classic answer, the answer that I've been talking about for a long time, which is sort of this litany that would be very familiar to a lot of you about why companies engage in these kinds of activities, about growing revenue and cutting costs and some kind of innovation, improving quality and the ability to attract and retain talent, being a preferred supplier, and then of course the reputational kinds of things, which I always put last, Because most people out there think that that's the primary reason companies are doing these things, just to green their image. And of course, so much of what you all are doing are things that you don't even talk about externally. And that's the irony of this, is that so much of what business is doing, walking way more than they're talking about what they're doing. And that's contrary to the public perception. But that's my old explanation. And it's not untrue. This is still a good explanation of why companies do these. But increasingly what I'm seeing is that this really boils down to one simple thing: risk. There's lots of different kinds of risk: reputational risk, financial risk, supply chain risk, regulatory risk, the right to operate. I mean, it has to do with how do you think about sustainability in a world where a flood in Thailand can disrupt the supply of disk drives globally for the better part of a year, or droughts in China or the American Midwest, or Russia or Eastern Europe or Australia or Brazil can fundamentally change the markets for basic commodities that we all use. How do you think about doing business in a world where so many parts of the world are water stressed or traffic choked, or have other issues that are part of what we think about as sustainability?